Hello everyone, tonight I bring you a story that winds through sand, silence and shadows. In the heart of Rajasthan, India, lies a place where time stopped centuries ago. A place where walls stand but life does not. Where whispers echo in empty courtyards and wind plays through deserted streets like mournful music. This is the story of Kuldhara, the cursed village that vanished overnight. Some say it was fear, some say it was pride, and others insist it was the weight of a dark curse that no one dared challenge. Let us begin our journey into the past, where the golden sands of the Thar Desert meet a history wrapped in mystery. The story begins in the 13th century, when the prosperous Paliwal Brahmins established the village of Kuldhara. They were known as skilled farmers, masters of irrigation who brought life to the desert through their intelligence and resourcefulness. For centuries, Kuldhara flourished. Its people lived in finely built houses of sandstone, with streets that followed an organized plan. Wells gave water, temples gave faith, and prosperity flowed. Visitors described the village as peaceful and self-sufficient, with its people dressed in fine fabrics and adorned with dignity. But every paradise has a shadow. The shadow in this story took the shape of a man named Salim Singh, a powerful and feared minister of the ruling kingdom of Jaisalmer. Salim Singh was a man of greed, lust, and cruelty, whose word carried the weight of law. His eyes fell upon a young girl from Kuldhara, said to be the daughter of the village chief. Her beauty was whispered about in the desert, ties like dark pools, hair like a river of midnight, and grace that made the sands themselves pause. Salim Singh demanded her hand in marriage, but the people of Kuldhara, proud and protective of their honor, refused. They knew too well the minister's cruelty. They knew that marrying their daughter into his household would mean humiliation, sorrow, and eventual destruction for them all. The refusal enraged Salim Singh. And so he declared that he would take the girl by force when the next moon rose. That night, the leaders of Kuldhara gathered in secret beneath the desert stars. They debated long and hard, their voices filled with fear, anger, and sorrow. Could they fight the minister? Could they appeal to the king? Could they flee? Every option seemed heavy with risk. But then one voice rose among them, suggesting something unthinkable. Abandon the village. Leave everything behind, homes, temples, livestock, fields, and vanish into the desert as though they had never existed. It was better, they reasoned, to live in exile than to lose their honor, and so the decision was made. The people of Kuldhara prepared for their departure in silence. They lit no lamps, made no sounds, and told no outsiders of their plan. Under the cover of darkness, they packed what little they could carry. Families held one another close as they walked out of the gates, leaving behind centuries of life. And before they left, they performed one final act, a curse. Standing before their sacred temple, the elders swore that no one would ever be able to live in Kuldhara again. Any who tried would suffer misfortune and despair. By morning, Kuldhara was empty. Its wells still had water. Its houses still had food in storage. Its temples still had incense burning, but there were no people. The streets echoed with silence. Neighbors from nearby villages came to look, only to find an abandoned town, deserted overnight. It was as though the earth itself had swallowed its people. To this day, no one knows where the Paliwal Brahmins went. Some say they scattered across the desert, hiding their identities in new villages. Others say they perished in the sands. Their traces vanished as completely as they had, but their curse remained. For centuries, travelers avoided Kuldhara after nightfall. Shepherds whispered that they saw figures moving among the ruins, shadows of women in veils, men in turbans, children with empty eyes. Merchants told tales of hearing strange laughter in the wind, of footsteps following them down abandoned streets, and of fires flickering in deserted courtyards. British officials during colonial times investigated Kuldhara. They noted the unusual silence, the intact yet empty houses, the feeling of being watched. Some officers attempted to camp in the village, but almost all reported being disturbed by inexplicable sounds, whispers, knocks on walls, footsteps that seemed to circle their tents. Many fled before dawn, swearing never to return. Even in modern times, Kuldhara remains deserted. Archaeologists have studied its ruins. Tourists visit during the day, marveling at the still, standing walls, the carved sandstone, the remnants of a life that once flourished. But when the sun begins to set, the desert itself seems to grow restless. Guides warn visitors not to stay after dark. Stories abound of those who dared and paid the price. Cars breaking down, sudden illness, vanishing shadows, and voices that call names in the night. Locals believe the curse is real. They tell of families who tried to settle in Kuldhara, only to abandon their attempts after tragedy struck. Livestock dying, children falling sick, homes collapsing for no reason. No one has ever successfully lived there since that fateful night of abandonment. But why did the Palawal Brahmins not simply fight Salim Singh? Why leave everything behind? Some historians suggest that there may have been more at play. Perhaps drought had weakened the village, and Salim Singh's threat was the final straw. Perhaps there were economic pressures that made leaving necessary. But even then, why vanish overnight? Why take an oath of silence so complete that no trace of their migration remains? The legend of the curse deepens the mystery. Some say that when the villagers left, they summoned ancient powers to guard their honor. Others believe the curse was psychological, passed down through generations as fear and superstition. Yet when one visits Kuldhara, standing in the silence of its streets, it is difficult not to feel the weight of that story pressing down. The desert remembers, the walls remember, and the wind, when it rushes through those empty houses, carries a sound that is not entirely its own. The silence of Kuldhara is not the silence of ordinary ruins. It is not the quiet of stones left behind by time. It is a silence that presses against the skin, that creeps into the mind, that unsettles the soul. Those who have dared to spend a night there say it is a silence alive with presence, as if the village itself still breathes, still watches, still remembers. In modern times, countless stories have been told by locals, visitors, and paranormal investigators who ventured into the ruins of Kuldhara after the sun slipped beyond the horizon. Each story adds another thread to the tangled mystery, weaving together fear, faith, and the unexplained. One of the most chilling accounts comes from a group of students who, curious about the legends, chose to stay overnight in the abandoned village. They set up a small camp inside one of the ruined houses, laughing away the warnings they had heard. For hours nothing happened. The desert was quiet, the sky thick with stars. But as the night grew deeper, they began to hear faint whispers. At first they thought it was the wind, but soon the whispers grew clearer, carrying words in an old dialect none of them could understand. Shadows flickered across the walls, though no fire burned nearby. One of the students swore he felt a hand on his shoulder, icy cold and invisible. Terrified, they fled before dawn, leaving their belongings behind. When they returned the next day to retrieve them, they found their camp in disarray, as though someone, or something, had searched through it. Another story tells of a family from a nearby village who tried to defy the curse. Believing the tales to be superstition, they attempted to settle in Kuldhara, building a temporary shelter among the ruins. For the first few days, all was calm, but then strange things began to happen. Their livestock died without explanation. Their young son fell mysteriously ill, crying at night about faceless figures standing by his bed. Their daughter claimed to see women in veils walking silently across the village, disappearing when approached. Fear overtook them, and they abandoned the settlement, never to return. Even researchers and government officials have not escaped the strange aura of Kuldhara. In the early 2000s, a paranormal investigation team from Delhi spent the night recording sounds and temperature readings within the village. Their instruments detected sudden drops in temperature in certain houses, from the warmth of the desert air to near freezing cold in moments. They recorded strange electronic disturbances, static, voices that did not belong to anyone present, and knocks that answered their questions as though in response. One investigator reported feeling an invisible force push him to the ground. When the team presented their findings, skeptics dismissed them as exaggerations, but the recordings of voices remained unexplained. Perhaps the most unsettling experiences belong to the locals themselves, who have lived in the shadow of Kuldhara for generations. Many refuse to go near the ruins after sunset. They tell stories of glowing orbs moving among the houses, of music drifting from the long, abandoned temple, of footsteps in the sand behind them that vanish when they turn. Some speak of a young woman who appears at night, her face hidden by a veil, standing at the village entrance. Those who see her say she raises a hand, as if to warn them away, before dissolving into the air. But beyond the ghost stories lies another layer of mystery. Historians and archaeologists have tried to piece together the truth of what happened that fateful night when Kuldhara was abandoned. Some believe the story of Salim Singh was real, that his lust and cruelty drove the villagers to desperation. Others suggest that famine, drought, and heavy taxation forced them to leave, with the legend of the minister added later to dramatize their suffering. Still, none of these explanations account for the swiftness of their departure. How does an entire community vanish overnight without leaving a trace of where they went? The curse, too, raises questions. Was it truly supernatural, or was it a psychological weapon meant to deter outsiders from occupying their sacred land? The fact remains, no one has ever been able to repopulate Kuldhara successfully, no matter how rational or fearless they claim to be. Science offers possible explanations. The eerie sounds reported at night could be the result of desert winds passing through narrow sandstone passages, creating tones that mimic whispers or voices. Sudden drops in temperature could be explained by localized air currents or geological features beneath the ground. Feelings of being watched, touched, or followed might be symptoms of heightened anxiety when standing in a place so charged with legend. Human imagination, after all, is powerful. Fear can summon phantoms of its own, and yet there are things science struggles to explain. The recordings of voices, the strange lights, the consistent reports of similar apparitions across generations, these cannot be dismissed so easily. For every rational explanation, there seems to be one detail that refuses to fit neatly into logic. The Indian government has since recognized Kuldhara as a protected heritage site. Tourists now visit during the day, marveling at the skeletal beauty of the ruins. The streets, once alive with voices and laughter, now stand as open-air museums of silence. Guides tell the story of the curse with practiced rhythm, their words a blend of history and legend. Visitors walk the streets, touching the sandstone walls, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down. Some leave with photographs, others with souvenirs, and a few with experiences they cannot explain. One traveler wrote of standing in the temple at sunset, listening to the guide speak, when he suddenly heard a child laughing behind him. Turning quickly, he saw no one. The guide swore no children had entered the temple. Yet when he played back a recording on his phone later, the laughter was there, clear and distinct. Another tourist described watching her camera battery drain from full to empty within minutes, only for it to recharge once she left the village. Paranormal investigators note that such sudden energy drains are common in places of supposed haunting, as though unseen forces draw power from nearby devices. Perhaps the most haunting thought is this: if the people of Kuldhara truly cursed their village, where did they go afterward? Did the curse follow them, or did they leave it behind as a sentinel to guard their honor? Did they survive, building new lives in hidden corners of the desert? Or did they vanish into the sands, their bloodlines ending, their spirits forever tied to the ruins? Standing in Kuldhara today, one can almost imagine the lives once lived there, the laughter of children running through the streets, the songs of women at the wells, the prayers rising from the temple. And then, with equal clarity, one can imagine the night it all ended. Torches snuffed out, doors left ajar, footsteps fading into the desert. A collective silence that has lasted for centuries. The truth of Kuldhara may never be known. It lies buried beneath layers of history, legend, and sand, but in that uncertainty lies its power. The mystery continues to draw people from around the world, each searching for answers, each leaving with more questions. Some leave with stories of shadows and whispers, others with the simple memory of silence heavy as stone. And perhaps that is the essence of Kuldhara's curse. Not just the inability to live within its walls, but the inability to leave it behind once you have entered. For those who walk its streets, whether by day or by moonlight, carry a piece of its enigma with them forever. Kuldhara is more than a village. It is a question carved into stone, whispered through sand and etched into memory. A question with no answer, a silence with no end. And so as our story closes, the curse of Kuldhara remains, a village once alive, now forever empty, a mystery that has resisted time, resisted reason, resisted explanation. The people may have vanished, but the story endures, echoing through the centuries.